Hey everybody, this video was going to be a how to replace your bearings on the drive shaft of your Maytag washer video. I've got a 5-year-old Maytag Bravos XL and it sounded like this. So I thought I'd do some internet searching and discovered that it was the bearings that were the problem. Really, it's the only thing that spins all the time during the spin cycle, and if you reach down and try to move the tub around, you could feel some grinding and it didn't sound quite right. So it seemed pretty obvious that the bearings were the problem. I would just go ahead and replace it. I found a great how-to video by Appliance Pros, and there's a link to that video in the description, and I thought I'd film a video of how to do that. Well, I thought it would take about 2.5 hours, and this would work for any modern Maytag, Kenmore, or Whirlpool that sounds like this, and I thought it'd be a great video for you. Well, 2 hours into this 2.5-hour task, I realized I was nowhere near going to be done in time like I thought, and so instead of trying to make a video, I'm just going to give you some commentary on the Appliance Pros video to help you be a little bit more successful, a little bit faster than I was. It's a great video. You can pause it all along the way, and it really tells you everything you need to know in order to do the video, so my replicating that wouldn't really be all that helpful anyway. So if you have a whole day or half a day and you're decently good with hand tools and you can jury rig along the way on a few things if you need to, then this replacing the bearings is going to be a whole lot cheaper than paying someone to do it or buying a whole new washer. So like I said, my washer was just under 5 years old, and so technically it was under the limited warranty for the drive mechanism. But when I called Maytag, they wouldn't tell me what parts were specifically included and whether it was just the motor or whether it was include the bearings. I had to have somebody come out and diagnose the problem, and then they'd tell me if it was under warranty or not. And if it was under warranty, only the parts were covered and not the labor. So I would have to pay for a service call, and then the amount of time it would take to actually do the work, and I may not even be the parts covered under warranty. So that was quickly going to be hundreds of dollars, probably just as cheap to just buy a whole new washer at that point. But for under $100, I was able to buy the parts and rent the tool to do the work. So that's the recommended approach that I took, and I recommend to you if you can do some things with tools. So go ahead and watch the Appliance Pros video, and then I'm going to give you some more tips as well that helped me out. There's also in the description, I've linked the parts that I bought and the tool rental that I actually got off of eBay. Now I was a little bit skeptical about renting a tool off of eBay. You pay, it was $30 for the tool and then $70 for shipping. And that's the rental fee, or the deposit, I guess. So total is $100, which is how much it costs for a new tool. And I was a little bit skeptical, but I got the tool in just 2 days of shipping. I used it. You've got 60 days, I think, to get it back to them. You pay for the return shipping, and then you get that $70 back. It all works great. I actually honestly highly recommend it. It's a lot cheaper than buying a new tool. One thing to point out on my Bravos XL, the Appliance Pro video says that you use a putty knife and pop the hinges open, the hinge clips open. It doesn't work like that on mine. You unscrew the couple of screws from the back of the hinge, and then you actually push the lid forward, and then it rotates up.
First thing you need to do is come back here and remove the bolts at the top of the hinges so that you can open the lid and turn that back. And it's a 1/4 inch socket, one on each side. Leave the bottom bolt installed. Once you have the lid taped down, the next thing you need to do for this particular washer is from the back, you would just push the lid part forward like that. And once you've got it pulled forward, you can just come around to the front. It's hard to do with one hand, but you just pull it forward a little bit more and hinge it upwards.
So the next tip for you is don't use a prop to hold the lid of the top of the washer open. Do use a lanyard or a rope or something like they suggest in the video. I ended up using a rope, and you want to make sure it stays back all the way open, so you don't want it leaning forward into the washer. What I started with was just a piece of wood to use as a prop, And I can tell you that when you hit that prop and it goes into the washer and the top falls down and hits you on the head, it's heavy and it really hurts. So use a lanyard and tilt it more than 90 degrees back. You definitely don't want to rely on those hinges to hold it open, just like they say in the video. Also tape the glass lid down to the top really well. You're going to be moving the washer to its back and then back upright a lot during this whole process. And if that lid comes untaped, it's very good potential to smash against the ground or something else that might cause it to break. And I don't know how much that lid costs, but it's probably really expensive. So and it'll make a big mess. So be really careful and always check that your tape is in place before you move the washer to its back or back up to the front. And do realize you're going to be flipping this washer back and forth a lot, and take the time to check that everything is out of the way when you make that move every time. After 5 hours into it and you're flopping it back and forth, you want to just go fast with it and just be careful, go slow. When it comes to removing the inner tub, the video recommends a method that uses a jack from your car to help get it out. I had to do it, absolutely. I don't know, maybe if you're stronger than me, you can pop it out, but I definitely had to use that jack method. I was lucky in that I had a few short pieces of wood that I could use as they show in the video to help pop it up. Frankly, I would just assume that you're going to have to do that. You might get lucky and it might come free easily, but I'm assuming that it's not going to be the case. Do realize that jack method will only get the tub up as far as so that the top of that drive shaft is level with the bottom of the tub, and that's not all the way out. So you're going to have to get the jack out of there, and it's still going to be stuck in there a little bit. At least it was for me. So I had to have another person, my son came out and helped, and he pushed down on the outer tub while I wiggled and pulled up on the inner tub, and I had to really jerk it up a few times to get it finally to come 100% free. So just realize you're probably going to need a second person, and that'll all make sense once you get in there. Do be careful that second person, when they're holding the outer tub down, does not have their head over the inner tub, because when you get that to come free, it's just going to come up, and you don't want to hit that person in the face. So once you do all of this disassembly work to get to the bearings, and it's really easy to get the bearings out and put them in if you have that tool. There are other videos out there that show how to do it without the tool, how to jury rig your own tool. Guys, ladies, just take the $30 or $45 hit, rent the tool. It'll be so much worth it. The actual installation of these bearings was the fastest part of this whole project. Be careful when you use the tool though, when you press the bearings in. I wanted to make sure that they were fully seated. I didn't want to have to take this all apart again. The video warned you that if you don't get it quite right, you're going to have to go back in. I wanted to avoid that, so I cranked down on them really hard, and that actually causes problems. So be wary of that. And what it is, there's a metal sleeve that you're going to put inside the housing for where the drive shaft goes. It's between the two bearings. And that sleeve basically free floats inside of that the little tube that it sits inside of. It's not the same diameter of that tube. And if you crank the bearings down too hard, they're gonna compress that sleeve, and it's almost 100% guaranteed that sleeve then will not be perfectly aligned with the inner diameters, the holes of both of those bearings, and the drive shaft has to go through both bearings and through that inner sleeve. And if you crammed it in place, it won't line up, and you'll have to take it all apart again. Also, if you crush those bearings together, it's going to crush that inner sleeve. That's what I did the first time, and it was totally unusable. I couldn't get it back into the shape it's supposed to be in. Thankfully, I had the old one. It was perfectly fine, so I reused the old one. So get the bearings seated, but when you get to a stop with that nut, don't over crank it. It'll be fine. And it really didn't take me a whole lot of turns on that nut to get it all fully seated. The tool works really well. Finally, when you get it all, when you're really putting it all back together, there's a lock nut that goes on the bottom of the drive shaft. You're like 5 hours in, you want this to be over with. The video makes it look like it's pretty easy to get that lock nut installed. Yeah, at least for me, the one that came with mine, it was not, it did not want to go on. It was super tight. They tell you hold on to the end of the drive shaft with a pair of pliers and use your adjustable wrench to get that nut on, it would not go for me. I had a real hard time with it. So for me, what I was doing, these pliers are what I was using, and the splines on the inside of these pliers were great because they exactly lined up with the splines on the drive shaft. So I bit the bullet and I actually clamped onto the splines of the drive shaft with these pliers, and because the splines all lined up, I didn't ruin the splines, and I was able to hold the drive shaft, and it was still a real challenge to get that nut tight. It will definitely not back out on its own, and you want to get it all the way tight, of course, because if you don't, you could certainly have lots of problems along the way. So in summary, this job is pretty straightforward if you follow the video. It's pretty simple with the tools that you have to use. It's a long process. It was frustrating for me, frustrating getting the tub out and frustrating getting that lock nut on. Otherwise, it was pretty simple. My washer was pretty clean on the inside and on the bottom. I didn't have any other broken parts to worry about. So it was really a pretty straightforward task, fortunately. But it was a fair amount of time involved. So if you have that, if you're good with the tools, I really think it's a task that you can tackle. And when you're all done, it's going to sound like this. So I hope this video helps you out. I hope my commentary helps you out. I hope the Appliance Pros video, I can't give them enough credit. They did a really good job with this one. Is useful to you. In the description below are links to the parts and the tool rental, and also that Appliance Pro video that I used. Feel free to leave comments, ask questions. I'll do the best I can to answer them. And good luck with the project. I hope it works out for you as well as it did for me.